power skills are oftentimes the difference maker between good leaders and great leaders. So when you're thinking about things like emotional intelligence, empathy, active listening, knowing how to manage conflict, knowing how to make a decision without having all of the information, we think of those things as soft skills. And I would encourage you as a leader within your organization to prioritize learning and development around those skills, because oftentimes that's where the gap is. Welcome back, friends. I'm excited about today's episode, and I'm going to ask you to share this episode with your leader. If you are a people leader, you report into a people leader, this is one of those episodes that we're going to get into the nitty-gritty on leadership development. So when we think about leadership development, it really is a cornerstone of organizations' success. Any organization that is going to be successful, whether you are a startup company or you're a well-established Fortune 100 organization, or you're a nonprofit or government entity, that business will grow to the level of the competencies and capabilities of the leaders inside of that organization. And when we generally think about leadership development, it's usually a one-size-fits-all approach. So we think about things like off-the-shelf e-courses or traditional methods that really dominate this space of leadership development, yet there's a growing body of research and evidence that supports this notion that many CEOs have that the status quo approach to leadership development is not producing the results that are desired to meet the demands of today's marketplace. When we think about the vast acceleration of business in 2023, 2024, really post-pandemic, right? So much has changed in our businesses, in our industries, and it really requires us to think more innovatively about how we approach leadership development. Now, let's talk about some of just the facts, right? Before we get into, okay, what might changes look like or what's currently not working. Did you know that leadership development is $1 billion industry? In fact, US corporations spend $166 billion annually on outsourced leadership development. Ask me why I got into this field. No, for several reasons, but that's one of them, right? So organizations, leaders like you are making investments, very big investments in how do we partner with, connect with the right resources to upskill and reskill our people so that we become more profitable and more purposeful in serving our customers and clients. And that number actually, my friend, is based on a 2018 LinkedIn report. So that's 2018 numbers, and this industry continues to grow and evolve. The second thing that we know when we look at the leadership development industry, again, just at the current landscape, traditional models dominate. So the traditional classroom style of come into the room, sit down at a seat, turn on a PowerPoint and listen to an instructor dominate the leadership development industry. So we know that from a McKinsey report, 77% of organizations still use that primary traditional approach to leadership development. The third thing that we know, again, that there are concerns around the efficacy of the work. So based on that same McKinsey report, only 10% of CEOs in corporations believe that their company's leadership development initiatives have a clear business impact. And that's not only CEOs. I recently attended the Learning Ideas Conference, which was held at Columbia State University in New York. And it's a combination of learning and development professionals in the academic space and also learning and development professionals in corporations. And you hear a lot of this. How do we validate and truly prove that the leadership development initiatives, programs, curriculum that we're running today is actually yielding the business results that we want? So when you think about that question and some of the challenges and problems with the current state or status quo leadership development, a few things come to mind. The first is that there's often a lack of personalization. So conventional programs, again, that off-the-shelf course or that trainer that you bring in that might do the same training every single year for a group of people, usually those traditional approaches don't account for people's individual experiences. So when you think about the unique challenges that people face across the spectrum, right? Sometimes those approaches that are more traditional are not connecting with people's actual experience. So it's analogous to thinking that you could bring 100 leaders into a conference room and all of them wear the same size shoe, right? We know that that's likely not the case. Likely every person has a different size shoe. There may be a few that fit, 20% of the group, 10% may wear the same size, another subset may wear the same size, right? So when we think about how we traditionally approach leadership development, though, we have one course on said topic or one live training on insert topic, and we serve that up in the same way to everybody. The second problem that we see that's connected to that lack of personalization is a lack of cultural relevance. And we think about cultural relevance when we are thinking about DEI, right? So we say, okay, diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. So we need to ensure that we have resources that meet the needs of all of our people. But are you also taking that same mindset when it comes to your leadership development? The way that you develop the current and the next generation of leaders inside of your organization, are you considering that in 2024, 2023 and beyond, right? The workforce is global. So you are bringing together, or you are looking at your succession plans and thinking that, hey, there's a need, right, to ensure that whatever leadership development programs or tactics that you're using is meeting the needs of this global workforce. And often there's a very Western-centric leadership model that we share as an approach for everyone, right? And again, it might not translate when you consider some of those cultural differences.
This season of the Career Thrivers show was recorded inside of AB Hillsboro Village. In the rhythm of Nashville, AB dances to a tune of inclusion and community. Curated by Nashville's own Marcy and Derek, this premier live music and event venue harmonizes local flair with a very welcoming spirit. It's more than a space, it's where Nashville's diverse heartbeat is celebrated, making every event an inclusive masterpiece. Learn more about AB at anzyblue.com.
Another problem that we often see in the leadership development industry is static content, right? And so leadership isn't a static discipline, yet when we think about some of the training programs that are out there, they haven't changed for years. It's the same approach, it's the same framework, and there hasn't been a dynamic shift in the leadership development tools, resources, although there's been a very present everyday shift in the business, right? So as leaders, many of us say, well, yeah, business is changing as fast as we can breathe in some industries. But when you look at your leadership development models that you're using to train the very people that you want to lead this new business, it's the same framework and it's not working. So what are some solutions? How do we think about leadership development in a more expansive way? At Career Thrivers, one of the things that we believe, and the reason why we are very intentional in sharing that we're a leadership development company, is that many organizations, especially over the last few years since 2020, take this approach to DEI as it being separate, right? So we say things like, we need an unconscious bias course for our leaders, instead of saying, within our leadership development frameworks, resources, training, we need to incorporate DEI, right? So when you think about those competencies that you want your people leaders to exhibit in order to lead your business, all of them, right, ideally would include inclusive leadership, right? And aside from it being it being a separate thing, right? So when we say leadership development at Career Thrivers, it is inclusive of what you're doing from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint. So here are a couple of things to think about and to consider as you, either as a learning and development professional or as a people leader, a leader of leaders, or an organizational leader at your company. The first thing we want to keep in mind is we want to have culturally relevant curriculum, right? So this means going beyond translating the content in different languages, right, for your global workforce, right? What it means instead is that you truly understand the nuances of different cultures so that your content, your skill development is meeting the needs of those cultures. This is so critical. And one of the ways to think about this is to include in your instructional design the group, the audience that you are designing the content and curriculum for, even if you are using an outsourced partner, right? So we follow pretty closely to the ADDIE model at Career Thrivers. It's an instructional design approach to ensure that we're thinking about the audience member, right? The N of one, to develop a very tailored learning roadmap to meet that particular skill. So you want to take that kind of approach. You might even think about creating a center of excellence within your organization to ensure that when there is a new training or a new workshop or a new skill development program that you're launching, that you have a subset of leaders there that can help you really to think through and ensure that the content is culturally relevant, right? The second thing that you want to think about is tailoring the design. So cultural relevance hits on the fact that you want to make sure that the content is meeting the needs of the people. When you think about tailoring, though, you want to think more broadly. So you want to think about things like, who is the instructor, right? The content has been designed, but who's delivering the message? What are the tools that you're using to deliver the message? What is the container that this training or leadership development program is being delivered in? And then also, who are the partners? So one thing that we do at Career Thrivers to help with the tailored approach around leadership development is we like to include business leaders in the delivery of the instructional design. So corporations will bring us in to help to create a curriculum, but then we say, hey, let's be partners in how this is delivered, whether that's through a traditional train the trainer type of model, or if our team is delivering it, we say, hey, let's make sure that we have talking points for a senior leader so that this message is also being delivered by people and leaders that your teammates are seeing within your organizations every day. It's so, so critical. Another thing to continue with the tailored approach is to think about, how do you deliver the same core framework, right? So let's take, for example,
Hey Thriver, I'm excited for you to get your hands on your copy of the Blueprint to More Visibility and Influence. This is a powerful free resource that's designed to catapult your influence and amplify your impact in your business or company. Now, this isn't just another online guide. This is your strategic companion that's going to walk you through the world of personal branding and authentic leadership. Inside, you'll unlock essential strategies that are going to help you do a few things. One, sharpen your self-awareness and own your unique story, navigate the complexities of workplace dynamics with more confidence, elevate your presence in any room, and ensure that you are not only seen, but also heard and valued. Why wait for opportunities when you can create them? With this blueprint, you'll learn how to cultivate a personal brand that commands respect and opens the door for new opportunities. And the best part, you'll start seeing the world differently, not just as a place where you fit in, but one where you stand out. You'll transform your self-doubt into more self-assurance and turn your aspirations into tangible achievements. So join me in our community of thrivers who are making their mark. Don't let this moment pass you by. Head on over to letsThriveTogether.com to download your free copy of the Blueprint to More Visibility and Influence today. Start your journey and let's thrive together.
What we see is one of the biggest missed opportunities within the leadership development space for organizations, and that's taking your highest performer, right? So that individual contributor that, if it sales, is at the top of the ranking report quarter over quarter, year after year, and then saying, hey, that person, their next level is to lead a team. And the gap in that sometimes is that they haven't received the leadership development to understand how to bring the best out of other people, right? They know how to be a high performer. They know what it means to perform and get results, but getting results for yourself and getting results out of people is a completely different skill set. So when you're thinking about that first people lead, the first time people leader, or that aspiring people leader, how are you tailoring, right, your same core competencies that you have for first time people leaders to the needs of a woman? Because again, getting back to being culturally relevant or getting back to being tailored, how I would talk or teach about public speaking, for example, or owning your voice, or creating a clear vision and being able to deliver it to a group in a group setting. I would likely share that instruction differently to a group of women than perhaps that I would to a group of men. Or in the same context, when you think about racial or ethnic diversity, if you have a multicultural leadership development program, there are going to be some nuances in that program that speak to that group, even though the framework is the same, versus if you were just delivering an off-the-shelf leadership development curriculum. So again, you want to make sure that you are providing what we call at Career Thrivers tailored learning and development that meets the needs of that set group that you're after. Many variations, same model though, so the relevancy is there. Then you want to think about experiential learning. I love this one. It's probably one of my favorites because one of the best ways to learn is through experience, right? So many of you are probably familiar, if you're in the learning and development space, with the learning model of the best ways to learn. So 70% of the way that we learn is on the job learning, right? It's through experience. You're actually doing the thing, you're in practice, so you learn. 20%, right, is through instruction, and 10% is didactic. So like you're in that, again, what we think of or what takes up most of the space in the leadership development industry is that like traditional classroom type of model. But really when someone is talking to us, we're looking at a PowerPoint, we retain much less of that information than we would if we were actually on the job doing the learning. So you want to think about ways, and the way that we think about this at Career Thrivers is how can we help to create the experience in a learning environment to move beyond a presentation. I can have the best slides in the world. I can be the best presenter with all of the nonverbal cues and competencies to deliver a clear, concise, and compelling message. But if the people don't have an opportunity to experience that learning in real time, then they're only retaining about 5 to 8% of what's being delivered. So that's one of the reasons why, going back to that McKinsey stat, that CEOs, only 10% believe that the leadership development that, again, companies are spending millions of dollars on actually connects to business results. One of the reasons is because we're lacking that experiential part. So one of the things that we found in working with our partners is that events is a great way to bring in experience so that leaders actually walk away having practiced the very competency that you want them to get better at. We use a model that we call 15-15-15. So when we are delivering a summit, an event, or a specific learning and development experience for an organization, we're only spending 10 to 15% of that time giving a message from the front of the room, right? So whether we're using workbooks or a slide deck or someone's up speaking or there's coaching that's happening, right? That's 15 minutes. The second set of 15 minutes is giving time for the room, the audience, to actually practice what they've learned. We like to bring in our coaches at our events to give, again, that kind of guidance. You have that facilitator at the table that's saying, okay, how does this sound? You just went through a session on giving feedback. You just went through a session on, as a new people leader, giving an annual review. Okay, we just talked through it, you listened to it. Now it's time for you to get up, find a partner, and let's run through these scenarios, right? And then the last 15 minutes is the Q&A. So instead of a 45-minute workshop, the audience has spent, or your team has spent, the vast majority of that time, 30 minutes actually involved, right, in that experience so that it sticks with them after they've left the room. The last way that you can create more dynamic and more sustainable leadership development, learning and development for your leaders is by integrating, and I would even say prioritizing, what's known as soft skills. So we don't call them soft, we call them power skills, because those power skills are oftentimes the difference maker between good leaders and great leaders. So when you're thinking about things like emotional intelligence, empathy, active listening, knowing how to manage conflict, knowing how to make a decision without having all of the information, we think of those things as soft skills. And I would encourage you as a leader within your organization to prioritize learning and development around those skills, because oftentimes that's where the gap is. It's not in the technical knowledge of your teammates, but it's in their ability to connect with other people that balls get dropped, that your attrition is high, that you can't retain women, you can't retain professionals of color, not because you don't have brilliant people, but perhaps there's an opportunity to develop those leaders on those power skills. So as we wrap this episode, again, in an era where one size fits all approach to leadership development is often what's served up, we have a critical opportunity, especially at a time in our world globally where there's so much change. The way that we approach work, the way that we deliver value to our customers and our clients in this day and age is heavily reliant upon technology. Artificial intelligence is transforming the way that we do business. It's transforming the way that we connect with clients and customers. And it also has the power to transform how we deliver learning and development to take our leaders to the next level. So embrace tailoring, embrace having culturally relevant training. And remember, your organization will continue to grow and be profitable and impactful at the level that you're making an investment in your leaders. I'll see you in the next episode.